Right now, as you're watching this video, two delegations are sitting inside a luxury hotel in Islamabad, Pakistan. On one side, the Vice President of the United States, JD Vance. On the other, Iran's Parliament Speaker and Foreign Minister. Between them, a negotiating table and decades of blood, mistrust, war, and broken promises. This is the highest-level face-to-face meeting between the United States and Iran since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. That's 47 years. And it's happening today. The world is watching. Oil markets are holding their breath. Millions of people across the Middle East are waiting to find out if this is the beginning of peace or just the calm before another storm. So, what exactly is going on in Islamabad? Why is Pakistan hosting these talks? And what does each side actually want? Let's break it all down. To understand today's talks, we need to rewind just 6 weeks. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a massive, coordinated military assault on Iran. The strikes were enormous in scale, and they didn't just hit military targets. Among those killed was Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. That's a seismic event. The leader of the Islamic Republic, dead. The entire region went into shock. Iran hit back hard. It launched missile and drone strikes against Israel, against American military bases across the Middle East, and against US allied countries in the region. And then Iran did something that sent shockwaves through the entire global economy. It partially closed the Strait of Hormuz. Now, for those who don't know what that means, roughly 1/5 of the world's entire oil and gas supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz during normal times. When Iran moved to block it, oil prices exploded. One Iowa farmer told CBS News the price of farm diesel had more than doubled in just a few months, from under $2 a gallon to over $4. Stock markets panicked. The global economy started feeling the pressure in a very real way. For weeks, the two sides exchanged threats. Trump said on April 1st that Iran had asked for a ceasefire. Iran flatly denied it, calling the claim false and baseless. Trump then threatened to attack Iran's power plants and bridges if the strait wasn't reopened within 2 days, and also threatened to wipe out Iranian civilization. It looked like total war. And then out of nowhere, Pakistan stepped in. This is where the story gets genuinely surprising. Pakistan, a country that spent years in international headlines for economic instability and security tensions, quietly emerged as the critical bridge between Washington and Tehran. Why Pakistan? A few key reasons. First, geography. Pakistan shares a 900-kilometer border with Iran. That's a long, very real connection. Second, Pakistan currently maintains working relationships with both the United States and Iran, which is rarer than you might think. Third, and this is important, Pakistan is home to the world's second-largest Shia Muslim population after Iran. That gives Islamabad genuine credibility in Tehran. Pakistan's army chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, reportedly made multiple back-channel calls with both US and Iranian leadership during the most intense days of the crisis. Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq flew to Beijing to bring China's diplomatic weight into the effort, which analysts say helped convince Iran to engage. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif formally extended invitations to both sides, and they both accepted. The Serena Hotel in Islamabad's Red Zone, a beautifully ornate property known for its carved wooden panels and rose-colored chandeliers, was fully reserved. Existing guests were asked to vacate and compensated for relocation. Islamabad declared April 9th and 10th public holidays, emptied the streets, sealed the Red Zone, and deployed massive security. As one CNN correspondent put it, Islamabad became the center of the world. So who actually showed up for these talks? On the American side, leading the delegation is US Vice President JD Vance, the most senior American official to visit Pakistan since Joe Biden came in 2011. Alongside him are Steve Witkoff, Trump's top special envoy, and Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and trusted negotiator. They flew more than 16 hours to get here. Before leaving Washington, Vance said simply, "If the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we are certainly willing to extend an open hand." On the Iranian side, Iran's delegation is called Minab 168. That name is a tribute to the 168 children and 14 teachers killed in a US airstrike on an elementary school in the town of Minab on the first day of the war. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi literally carried the school bags of those children on the plane to Islamabad, alongside photos of the victims. It's a deeply deliberate message about the human cost of this conflict. Leading Tehran's negotiating team is Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, a former commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guards and a hardliner. The delegation includes 71 people in total that includes negotiators, technical experts, media representatives, and security personnel. As Ghalibaf stepped off the plane in Islamabad, he said something that summed up Iran's position perfectly. "We have goodwill, but we do not trust." Here's where it gets complicated and honestly, where we need to be fair to both sides. The US has put forward what's described as a 15-point proposal. The full details haven't been made public, but what we know includes Iran must completely end its pursuit of nuclear weapons, Iran must hand over its stockpile of highly enriched uranium, the Strait of Hormuz must be fully reopened, immediately and without conditions, limits on Iran's missile capabilities, restrictions on Iran's support for armed groups across the region, groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and others. Trump has been blunt about the bottom line. Speaking before the talks, he said, "No nuclear weapon." That's 99% of it. The US has signaled it's willing to offer sanctions relief in exchange for these concessions, but the demands are steep. Iran has presented its own 10-point proposal. Tehran's demands include the right to continue uranium enrichment. Iran's nuclear chief has called zero enrichment demands wishful thinking, full lifting of all US, UN, and IAEA sanctions, full compensation and reparations for wartime damage, the withdrawal of US combat forces from bases in the Middle East, international recognition of Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz and potentially charging ships a toll to pass through, paid in cryptocurrency, a halt to Israeli operations, specifically in Lebanon, release of frozen Iranian assets held abroad, a binding UN Security Council resolution to lock in any final agreement. The gap between these two positions is enormous. Iran wants to be treated as a sovereign nation that won certain rights through resistance. The US wants a heavily constrained Iran with no nuclear capability and an open waterway. Even before the talks formally began, a critical dispute threatened to blow everything up. When the two-week ceasefire was announced on April 7th, Iran and Pakistan said Lebanon was included. The United States and Israel said it wasn't. Hours after the ceasefire took effect, Israel launched its largest wave of strikes on Lebanon since the war began, killing over 300 people, including innocent children and women, in a single day. Iran called it a violation. The ceasefire very nearly collapsed before the Islamabad talks even started. Experts and analysts close to the mediation process are being deliberately cautious about expectations. Experts and analysts close to the mediation process are being deliberately cautious about expectations. Pakistan's goal for these talks is deliberately modest. As Pakistan's former ambassador to the UN Zami Akram put it, Pakistan has succeeded in getting them together. We got them to sit at a table. Now it is for the parties to decide whether they are willing to make the sacrifices necessary to reach an eventual solution. The realistic aim isn't a full peace deal, it's an agreement to keep talking, to extend the ceasefire, to build enough trust for a second round. Sanam Vakil, director for the Middle East and North Africa at Chatham House, told CNBC that if Trump can walk away with verifiable guarantees that Iran will allow nuclear inspectors back into its facilities and agree to dilute its enriched uranium stockpile, those will be wins he can sell to the American public. Iran's Supreme National Security Council has said negotiations could last up to 15 days, suggesting some delegations may stay in Islamabad beyond Saturday or return for follow-up sessions. The two sides are expected to begin with indirect, proximity-style talks, passing messages through Pakistani mediators before potentially moving to direct, face-to-face discussions later in the day. Past rounds in Oman were largely indirect, though there was some direct contact between Witkoff and Arachi during earlier nuclear negotiations.